How am I doing this morning? Good. Better than me. I about fell on that top step. Anybody see that? I know. I about ate it. That'd been cute. Podium come flying out. Me like busting my head probably on top of it. That'd been great. But that didn't happen. So I'm here. I'm good. I hope you guys are doing good. I hope I've had a good Christmas. Everybody have a good Christmas? Yeah. Okay. Partly. Some of you are good. All right, good. Well, I hope you guys have a better time tonight celebrating the new year. I'm sure all you let your little kids stay up super late. That way you get the whole day for them sleeping in tomorrow. But we all know better, right? Kids don't work that way, right? Kids stay up to midnight. They still get up at 6 in the morning. You know, like, no, you're supposed to sleep longer. That don't happen. So hopefully you have a great night. You just find a countdown somewhere on YouTube and play like at 9 o'clock at night. Oh, the ball dropped. Yay, let's go to bed, okay? That'd be fun. Then you can like go to sleep at a normal time and have a great day tomorrow. But this has been a fun week. This last week, a lot of our students went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee to extreme winter. They had a great time just watching some bands, hearing some great Christian speakers. It actually snowed while they were up there. I mean, not like an avalanche or blizzard type snow, but just a little light dusting while they were up there. This coming week, I'm taking a group of our college students up to Atlanta for the Passion Conference. We'll have great bands, great speakers, but probably no snow up there. We'll probably have rain, which will be fantastic. But, you know, there's a lot going on here at SouthCrest over the holidays and a lot that's coming up for this next year. And that's something that we can look forward to and something we can be excited about as we wait in expectation for that to happen. Some of us have big plans for the new year, right? Some of you have already made these awesome plans. Some of you have these great trips scheduled. You're like, hey, this year we're going on this trip. It's going to be awesome, fantastic. Some of you will be starting a new job. Some of you will graduate. Some of you will get married this coming year. And so there's just a lot of excitement about this year. But one thing I know, even with all of those plans, all of those things that we have laid out that we know we're going to do this coming year, the days of the unknown far outnumber the days of the known. And even the days of the known, like, hey, we're going on this great trip, we still don't exactly know what's going to happen when we're there. There's still uncertainty when it comes to even things that we think we know that we've planned out. And I think many of us kind of struggle with that sometimes. The unknown can create this place of fear, can create this place of uncertainty. And if we're not careful, we begin to dread what we don't expect. And so with that in mind, I've entitled today's sermon, New Year, No Fear. And most of us, like Elsa, are afraid of going into the unknown. We're afraid of broaching those areas because we don't know what this year is going to bring. There were some sailors quite a few years ago who were on a leaky old ship in the middle of a rough and stormy sea, and they began to fear for their lives. They didn't know whether they were going to sink or if they were going to make it out of this storm or not. So one of them went to the captain and was like, hey, captain, in your honest opinion, like, what are our chances here? Like, what's going to happen? And he said, well, hey, if I'm going to be honest with you, the way I see it is, this is a really old boat. And it's got an old boiler on it. It doesn't, function well, and so it may explode. To be honest, completely honest, with full transparency, it's also a very old boat, and we're taking on a lot of water, so we could sink. He goes, but, in spite of those two things happening, we have one choice, and that's to go on. He said, we could go up, we could go down, or we can go on. I think the same is true for this coming year for us, right? This year, we don't know what's going to happen. We could go up. Right? This could be a great year for us. Jesus could come back. This could be what everybody's been expecting and hoping for. Jesus' return, and everybody could go up. This could be a year of tragedy. We could go down and then up, right? We go down and then we die and then we go up. But it could be one of those things. But in spite of all of that, this is a year that we have to go on. This is a year that each day we have to take one day at a time. We have to go on and push through. And that's something that scares us. We face this brand new year and we don't exactly know what's going to happen. Old map makers way back in the day when they hand drew maps, when they would go on these expeditions like Lewis and Clark and all that, they would map out these new territories. But even before Lewis and Clark's time, they would go out and they would map these uncharted areas and they would draw these maps. But then there would become a place in their expedition when the supplies would run out. And it was this point of we can't go any further. And so what they would do on the map is they would just kind of draw this barrier line, and then in the empty space behind that barrier line, they would write, this may be a place where dragons live. Okay, now here's the thing. The map makers had never seen a dragon in their lives. Okay, they'd never seen a dragon. But they did know this. They knew dragons were scary. They didn't want to see dragons. And where they had not been was a scary place because no one's ever been there. So if you take scary plus scary, logic says that must be what happens. So therefore, dragons might live here because no one's ever been there before. And I think a lot of us, when we have a thing that we haven't been into, we think that's the place that dragons may be. You see, we begin to be afraid of the future. We're afraid of the uncharted. We're afraid of the unknown. So what does God have to say about fear? As we're looking into this new year and we have this uncertainty, this dread, what does God say about fear? And what is his stance on how we should face the unknown? As a matter of fact, God has a lot to say about fear. Let's just look at a few of those statements. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you." And again, Psalm 46, 1-3 says, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea. Though its waters roar and foam, through the mountains tremble at its swelling." As you can see from these verses here, God is not cool with fear. God's not about fear. And if God's not cool with fear, then you and I should not be okay with fear either. We should live lives outside of that realm of fear. Rick Warren once said this: "Fear is a self-imposed prison that will keep you from becoming what God intends you to be." Fear is a self-imposed prison, something we put onto ourselves that keeps us from fulfilling what God has called us to be, what he wants for us. So the Bible's pretty clear that we're not to live in fear. So what does it look like for us to live the opposite of fear, right? Now, fear is at the root and the opposite of trusting in God. Fear is about worry. It lacks that trust in God, that God, hey, you got me, God, you got this, God, you're good. Fear says, God, I can't trust you. God, I don't think you have this. God, I'm uncertain. All right? And so what are some things that we worry about, right? Let's just pick a couple things that we worry about in life and kind of look at those and see if we can expose the fear in them, okay? For most people, there's a big fear is money. First thing, money is neither good or bad. Money's just a thing, right? It's just something that exists. But it's the thing most of us worry about. Actually, we worry about not having enough of it, is what we worry about. But Hebrews 13, 5-6 says this: "Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you." So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? In other words, we're told in this verse not to love money. We're not told that money's bad. We're told not to love money. In other words, we're not to set up money as a God in our life. A God is something we put our hopes and dreams in. And many people in our society put their hopes and dreams in their finances. Can I afford to do this? If not, I need to make more money so I can go do these things. It becomes a God, an idol in their life. And the danger of that is that it gives us a false sense of confidence that we can make it on our own, that we don't need help, especially from God. And that also causes problems in our lives, because how do you know if you have enough money to be happy, right? Like, when is enough enough? What is the amount that you and I need to have in our lives to be secure and happy and worry-free, right? I don't know what that amount is. I don't know that number. I don't know if it exists. But I do know what the notorious B.I.G. and P. Diddy said about money. They said this: it's like the more money we come across, the more problems we see. I don't think there's any other church in America today quoting P. Diddy and B.I.G., but you know, we do, okay? Apparently, you can't have enough money to make you happy. And actually, the opposite is true. The more money you have, the more problems you're going to have. The more problems that will come your way. And so the solve of this is what the Hebrews passage told us, was to do this, is to be this thing called content. All right? I don't know if we know what content means, so I came to your aid this morning and I've defined content. Actually, the dictionary did, I just copied it. To satisfy the mind, to make quiet so as to stop complaint or opposition, to appease, to make easy in any situation. Now, a life of contentment doesn't look the same for everybody. Contentment, just like money, there's not a fixed amount, but it is what God has given you to live on. See, in this thing of uncertainty, I don't know what my future holds. I don't know what I need to get through that future. If I don't know what my future is, I don't know what I need to get through the future, right? But I know who holds the future. I know who knows all of my days. And contentment means that, hey, God has this. God has me. God knows my future. Therefore, what God provides me is more than enough to get through whatever I'm going through because God is in control of all of it. Contentment is trust in God. It's faith that he has you, will take you, and watch over you. It's a life that knows God will provide all that I need. And on top of that, he'll even give you some of the things you want. And it's a life that keeps us focused, that we can be sure that God's love is for us. And that's definitely something not to fear, to know that he is with us and watching us. Another thing that many of us fear is the unknown. Earlier this year, a couple months ago, I watched this show on Disney Plus. It was called Edge of the Unknown with Jimmy Chin. And Jimmy Chin's a videographer, and he's an extreme sports videographer guy. And this whole series is about extreme adventurers and their stories of confronting the elements, confronting fear, confronting loss, Mother Nature at its harshest. And these guys, they're just these extreme people like, hey, we're going to go jump into what everybody else is afraid to jump into. And as I was watching, it reminded me back in the late 80s, there was a clothing brand that came out called No Fear gear. Anybody ever have any No Fear gear? I had quite a bit of it, actually. And they still make No Fear gear, by the way. So for all of you nostalgia people, when I get you No Fear fit on, you can go do that. But to me, that's what this whole show is kind of like, right? It was celebrating the extreme. It was like celebrating these risk takers who seem just to go out there and risk it all because in their mind, the reward is greater than the risk. To be able to say, I did something no one else has done is worth it. Like, I watched another show. It was this guy climbing El Cap, and he did it free solo. All right, dude's a crackhead, okay? He's climbing one of the largest, hardest rock faces in the world with no safety rope. He just go out there and climb it. Crazy thing is he trained for 2 years, and most of the time when he trained with the rope, he fell. And he's like, yeah, I'm still going to do it, free solo. And he did it, and he made it, but some of his best friends couldn't watch because if he would have slipped, that would have, no more friend. But for him, the reward was worth the risk. That's the life they live. And when it comes to the unknown, the uncertain, we should kind of have a similar attitude as Christians. Because here's the thing, the difference is that we have a guide into the unknown. Psalm 119, 105 says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. You see, God knows where we're going. He lights the way. And even though it's unknown to us, it's not unknown to him. All it takes is faith. Henry Emerson Fosdick once said, fear imprisons, faith liberates. Fear paralyzes, faith empowers. Fear disheartens, faith encourages. Fear sickens, faith heals. Fear makes useless, faith makes serviceable. You see, we can't make fear a destination place for us. We can't make this fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, a place where we just stay. We have to move forward, and fear is what helps us to make the wise choice. Did you know that courage is not the absence of fear? Many people idealize courage as this whole, they're not afraid of anything. No. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is understanding fear, and even though you understand it, going through it. Because let's be honest, if there's no fear, it doesn't take any courage to go through that. I'm not afraid to go to here. This isn't scary. I'm not brave. You don't idolize my courage this morning as I walk side to side because there's no fear right here. Courage is like, hey, I see the fear. I understand the fear, but I need to go through it. Because I can't stay here, I have to go through. And courage is what gets you through, is recognizing fear and moving through it. It gives you a healthy respect of fear to make wise choices. Allow me to illustrate. If I'm standing at the edge of the cliff and I need to get to the bottom, I have 3 choices I can make. The first choice is I can just stay here, which is really not a choice because my goal is to get to the bottom. And therefore, if I stay here, I am safe, but I'll never get to what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's not a very good option. Option 2 just tells me to take a leap of faith, right? Just to jump on out. Well, hey, I can do that. And the first step's fine. It's the last step that hurts really bad, okay? And on many levels, me just stepping out blindly is not intelligent at all. Because stepping out blindly is not a step of faith, because faith implies that you understand something. So my third option is I see the cliff ahead of me, and I have fear because, hey, if I fall, that's the end of me. So I begin to make some intelligent choices. Like, hey, maybe I should go get a rope. Maybe I should look for an alternate way down. You see, it doesn't mean that I have to go the straightest way down. It means I'm going to use that fear and begin to make choices to get me through that fear wisely. And that's what courage is all about. Remember that show, Edge of the Unknown, I just talked about. Truth be told, when you first watch that show and you see the previews for it, you think they're the second choice. We're just going to jump off and just see what happens. But that's not true at all. Just like the guy who did El Cap, he had 2 years of training. Most of these extreme people, when you start watching their story, spent months, weeks, years training for that exact event. They bring medical and safety teams. There was one of them where they have safety experts up there telling the person to do the risky thing or not. In other words, there's a certain amount of risk that you expect in an extreme sport, but there's also some stupidity, and so we're going to avoid that. Like, it's not safe. There was a woman who went downhill on this ski slope, and they would do avalanche checks on a regular basis to make sure when they got into it, they weren't consumed by an avalanche. Because years prior, this person did something like that and got ate by an avalanche. They were rescued, obviously, because they did something again. But so they're using this fear to do extreme things, but they're being smart about it. They have helicopters, search teams, rescue teams. They have life preservers. They have medics on hand. If anything happens, they're going to be taken care of. They've minimized the risks because they knew fear was out there, and instead of running from it, they faced it. So in the end, what they do really isn't crazy at all, but it's methodical, thought out, and worst case scenario prepared. You see, they live by this motto that Matsumoto, somebody's last name, said, "One who fears death never truly lives. One who is not afraid of death never truly dies." And as Christians, we need to live by that same motto because God is with us. You see, he has thought through and planned out our days. He knows what's before us, what's behind us. Look, before you were ever born, before you were ever thought of, God had a plan for you. God had a purpose for you. He was preparing a life for you, a life that was more abundant. And that's what he has for you. And that is why you can live this life with no fear. So what does all that mean for us today, right? So how can we kind of live through this life with confidence and not fear? Well, I think there's one more concept and this idea that we have to understand. And it comes from the passage, Isaiah 41, verse 10. It says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Now, this chapter in Isaiah 41, the first 20 some odd verses, you know how when you read your Bible, there's like little headlines above passages of scripture? This one is titled, "Fear not, for I am with you." And this chapter goes through all that God has done, that God has created the earth, that God has done all of these things. It talks of his power over nature. It talks about his ability to create and where he was. And in the middle of this huge list of all that God's accomplished, he throws in verse 10 and gives us 5 reasons to fear not. The first was this: "For I am with you." See, many times we're most afraid when we're alone. Our mind begins to wander and things begin to creep in. And there's no one else to calm us down or tell us that's a crazy idea. And so we work ourselves up and we work ourselves up. But God is always with us no matter what. As my kids were growing up, all of them had bouts with nightmares and bad dreams, right? And so, like, I would be asleep at night, and all of a sudden I would hear the bedroom door open, and then a little hand would start tapping me, like, "Daddy, I had a bad dream." And so as a good dad, I did what I normally do. I got up, drug them back to their room, put them in their bed, and said, "Hey, let's pray. Dear Jesus, be with them. Help me not have bad dreams anymore. All right, good night." And I'd walk back out and go to bed, okay? Because here's the thing about it. They're awake now. The bad dream's over. Why am I going to coddle them no more? I mean, you're awake, you're fine. Go back to bed. You're good, right? Now, if this began to become a habit, a couple nights in a row or every other night they're coming in and doing this, then some other things kick into me. First is, what are you watching on YouTube before you go to bed? You know, you're watching people get decapitated. Well, then you're probably going to have bad dreams, okay? You're watching snakes attacking people, probably going to have bad dreams, okay? So let's not watch those videos before we go to bed or at all, okay? Let's not do that, all right? And so that was for step one. So common sense is helpful in these fear situations as well. But then sometimes they would continue to have bad dreams. And so here's something that we did. We made sure they had a light in their room, a bedside lamp, and then we would go write scripture on postcards and we would tape it to their walls. We use scripture such as 1 Timothy 1:7. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. So what I would tell them is, before you come in and get daddy, I want you to wake up, turn on your light, I want you to read that scripture, and I want you to pray that God would step in. Because God promised that he would. Because here's the thing I need you guys to understand. So you think you're a bad dad. You should do more for your kid when they wake you up at night. Here's the thing. No matter how good of a dad I want to be, I can't control their thoughts and their minds. That's outside my realm of control. But you know which daddy that's not outside his realm of control? Our Heavenly Father. He can step into their mind. He can change their thoughts. I can't. So why come to me? I'm subpar when it comes to God as a daddy. So you go to him first. In life in general, y'all, going to God first is probably a good idea. So we were teaching our children to overcome fear, go to God first. Because he promised he'd never leave you or forsake you. He's given you a power over fear. He's given you strength over fear. He said, for I am with you. And so that is what we would do. So the next time you're afraid, go to the source of strength. Go to God and help him, ask him to overcome your fear. The next thing that we can do, it says, for I am your God. Now this is huge. God is the creator of the universe. So nothing is outside of his control, even if our life seems out of control. We won't always understand our circumstances and what we're going through, but it doesn't matter if we understand them or not. God is still in control. It doesn't mean you're going to like everything that happens to you. God don't care. He's still in control though. There's a lot of things in life we don't like that we have to go through. I have to pay taxes every year. I don't like that. I still got to do it. But we have to trust God is in control of our lives. God is bigger than our problems. So we have to learn to trust in him. The next thing we see in that verse 10 is this: I will strengthen you. In the verse we read earlier from Psalms, it says that God is our refuge and strength. And that's important to remember because our strength is limited. Some of us in this room are stronger than others, but even the strongest one in this room, there's a limit to that strength. There's a limit to what they can accomplish on their own. But God's strength has no bounds. God's strength is limitless. And he says he'll provide that strength for us. Now, when I was growing up, we walked to school back and forth, both ways uphill in the snow. And in actuality, it wasn't uphill both ways, but there was snow, a lot of it. And we would walk to school. And going to school was never a problem because everybody had to be there on time. But leaving school is when the bullies began to prey. See, everybody kind of walked home from our school. And so the bullies could go out and get ahead. They could hide and they could ambush you and just tease you or make fun of you or take your lunch money that you already spent and you maybe get your lunch change. I don't know. But that's where the bullies preyed. But we learned something pretty quickly. When you were on your own, you pretty much became bully prey. And the bullies thought they were pretty much invincible because they could pick on you. But when we began to notice that if you walked home in a group, the bullies would leave you alone, right? Because there's now more strength in that number than there is in them individually. You see, we had extra strength. It wasn't just what I could do, it's now what all of us could do together. And that became bully repellent for us. And the Bible talks about this. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 through 12. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has no other to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. You see, when we add that other one to our number, and that's God, then there's nothing that can overcome us. His strength. That's what we need to drive fear from our lives. The next thing we see, I will help you. Sometimes we have fear in our life because we can't do something and we're afraid of what we might be asked to do. Like, I'm gonna make some of you nervous right now, but it's all good, right? So let's just say I'm standing here right now and I decide, hey, I think we could use some prayer. So I'm gonna randomly pick one of you in this room to come up here on stage and pray right now. Okay, here's the thing about it. Most of you are totally comfortable praying to God on your own, right? Like in your house, closed doors, totally cool. The idea of you coming up here on stage scares half of you to death already. And then to have you pray. Look, there's probably 2 or 3 of you in this room who would come up here no problem and do that. All right? But most of you, we're like, I'm never going to that church again. And if I begin to do random prayer calls on a regular Sunday basis, this crowd would be half its size in about a month. Because you're like, I ain't going to that church and make you walk up on stage and pray when you don't know it. Okay? Shoot, there's some people in this room, I could give you a year notice. I want you to come on stage and pray, and you still wouldn't do it. All right? You'd be sick that day. Okay? So we have these fears, right? And sometimes those things put us in a bad situation. But the problem is the only reason we don't do that is because we're afraid. Right? I don't want to go up and pray in front of people. Why not? Not because they don't know how to pray, but because what if I say something weird? What if I don't say it the way they would say it? What if I mess up? Hey, I mess up all the time. Have y'all noticed that? I mumble my words together all the time. I say dumb things all the time. I'm okay with it. God gives us a fear not to fear. He's there to help us through that fear to get past it. And his help is always what we need, and it's totally awesome. So one of the things we do on Wednesday nights with our younger kids is we play games with them. And one of the games that we like to play is Foursquare in the air. Now, some of you are like, I've never heard of Foursquare in the air. I understand. If you've ever played Foursquare, the playground game where you draw 4 squares on the ground and you hit a ball inside of them, now you just put it up in the air. So instead of hitting the ball down, you have to hit it over these PVC pipes we build a structure with, and it bounces on through and everything else. And we play Foursquare in the air, okay? The kids love playing the game. And somebody gets out every turn. That's just what happens in the game. Somebody gets out, but it's okay because they love playing it. And so we were playing it one Wednesday night, and Claire Joy Major, Ross and Amanda's little girl, she goes to get into the career. She wants to play. Now, Claire Joy is one of our youngest ones, and she can't quite hit the ball high enough to get it over the bars. So typically when Claire Joy gets in, Claire Joy gets out as soon as someone hits the ball to her. And so she doesn't make it very far in the game. So one day I decided I will go play with Claire Joy. I will become Claire Joy's helper. So they hit the ball into Claire Joy's square, and it would magically appear back in somebody else's square, and they would get out. And pretty soon, Claire Joy was in the number 1 square, the leader's square. And Claire Joy was killing it. I mean, nobody could get her out. She was unstoppable. And the other kids started saying, well, that's not fair. Why isn't it fair? Because you're helping her. Whoa. How is that not fair? You guys knew I was going to help her. I said, you mind if I help Claire Joy? You said, yeah, you can help Claire Joy. So I went to help Claire Joy. Now she's winning, and you guys are upset because she's beating you. Ha ha. I had no joy in beating little children. Claire Joy did. She had all the fun in that, okay? I was just helping, okay? Now here's the thing about it. We eventually did get out so other people could play the game. But that's how God is in our lives. There's something we can't do on our own. And God says, I'm going to step in and help them. And everybody else sees God helping us. Well, that's not fair. God's helping you. Well, God will help you too, if you just ask him. You see, God can do things that we're not capable of. And when we trust in God's help, life goes a whole lot smoother. And that's some of the opportunities that he says, I will be there to help you. And the last thing that God has overcome fear with in our lives is this. He says, I will uphold you. Anyone here have a fear of heights? Anyone afraid of heights? Now let's be honest. Most of you aren't afraid of heights. You're afraid of falling from that height. Actually, you're not even afraid of falling from that height. You're afraid of the sudden stop at the end of that height, okay? That's what we're afraid of, okay? But we have this fear of heights, right? But God says, I will uphold you. I want you to get this image in your head, okay, of you living life to the fullest, and God is raising you up, and now you've reached this apex of your life. You're at the highest point of your life, and you begin to fear, what if I slip? What if I fall? But God says, I uphold you. I'm holding you up. You can't fall. And even if you did, I'm right there to catch you. Or like, If you've ever climbed a ladder and it's shaky, can you imagine God grabbing the ladder and holding it still so you can climb safely? God says, I will uphold you. I have you. Nothing will happen to you. You see, he's always over there watching over us today. So as we close today, I want to paint this picture of this verse and these 5 things just a little differently. So when you look at the first one, for I am with you, it means God's beside you, right? He's walking side by side with you. It says, for I am your God. The next one, it means I am over you with my mighty hand. The third one, I will strengthen you. It says, I will strengthen you from inside out. The fourth one, when it says, I will help you, he goes, I'm all around you as your help. I'm there for you. And then the fifth one, I will uphold you. I will uphold you from underneath you. In other words, there is no place in your life, nowhere you can go, nowhere you can exist where fear can creep in, because God has consumed every possible place in your life. God is all around you. The bottom line of all this today is this: if you have God, you don't need to be afraid. So when my kids were younger, we would go to the pool in the summers, the college pool before they closed it, and they took swim lessons there. But we would go to the college pool, they'd be like 2 or 3 years old, and they would want to get in the water. The problem was they didn't like the water that much, right? And so we could get them there, and we could sit on the steps, they'd be in our laps, they're fine. We could actually set them on the top step where the water's like an inch deep or something like that. They love it. But they would want to be in the deeper water with us, and so we would pick them up and hold them, and we'd walk them into the deeper water, right? But if you try to squat down, they start freaking out on you. They didn't like that, right? So we came up with a strategy to help them overcome their fear of getting wet. Right? So I would take them and I would put them on the edge of the pool. And I'd be like, come jump to me. Right? Jump to me. And all of them did the same little, I'm going to jump thing where it's like, and you think they're going to jump and then they back up. And you do that for about 5 minutes and finally they take that leap. And, literally your hands are like that far away. So like, okay, got you, right? They don't get wet at all. You just catch them. You put them back up, jump to me. They jump to you again. But what do you do as a parent? Most of you have done this game. I'm not the originator. You begin to slowly back up, right? So their jumps have to be further now. And all of a sudden their jump, it's a little bit slower, and their toes start getting wet. And they jump a little further, and then their shins start getting wet. And they jump a little further than their knees, up to their hip. And eventually they jump far enough where you kind of let them get them splashed on the face, get them splashed in the hair, and they just shake it off. But they're having fun. And so they want to jump again. And you keep on doing it until one time they jump and you dunk them underwater, pick them back up, and they just wipe it off. They look at you with that wide-eyed look. You're like, wasn't that fun? Let's do it again. And you do it again. You see, they learn to jump, and they learn to overcome that fear slowly because I'm always there catching them. The one hope they have in their life is it doesn't matter if I jump or not, Dad is right there to catch me. You see, in our lives today, God is right there to catch you. You don't have to live a life of fear because God's right there to catch you. At times, he might seem further away than others, but it doesn't matter how far God is. His reach is unreachable. He catches you. He's there. He gets you. He holds you. He uplifts you. You see, my kids had confidence that I would protect them. And there's many things in their life that they did and they don't even know it. The only reason they did it is because they knew Daddy was there to keep them safe. Or Mommy was there to keep them safe. And our life should be the same. God is there protecting us. Look, as we look at this coming year, there are many questions. There's many uncertainties. There's fears. You see, we're uncertain. We want to dive into this new year. We want to experience all God has for us, but something is holding us back. But remember today that God promised us he would never leave us or forsake us, that he is beside you, over you, inside, and all around you, underneath you, as always. He's got you. So let's jump in.